Okay, so I'm Jason Dearden, Managing Director here and founder of ARRMA. So my role in the Kraton A-Test was kicking it off and coming up with the design brief with the guys and taking that to Horizon and getting the funding and all that kind of stuff. And then on a day-to-day basis, I'd be in the design reviews and that kind of stuff.
I'm Wojciech Nowakowski, lead designer engineer at ARRMA and main engineer of the Kraton A-Test. We've been thinking about making this project for many years. We were just waiting for a good time for it.
I think it was an evolution of the 6S platform. The 6S platform was super successful, and then it's where do we go from there? We'd got the 4S platform, so kind of the obvious answer was to go bigger, and there seems now to be a good market with the advent of really good LiPo batteries and motors for bigger scale cars to become powered by electric. They're not just limited to gas anymore like they used to be.
Because the market had moved up into that area, there was an expectation from ARRMA fans, or a pent-up desire from ARRMA fans, that they wanted a larger scale vehicle.
We already have very successful products in our kind of core 1/8 scale and 10th scale range. So naturally there are other areas, be it big or small, which are not filled. So we have to kind of evaluate the pros and cons of each area, and then we come up with the ideas.
Yeah, the Kraton was chosen because it's an icon for ARRMA fans. It's arguably the best all-round bashing truck that we have. Most people seem to, I mean, everybody has their favourites, but most people seem to have a Kraton in their collection of ARRMA cars. They like the way it handles, they like the way it bashes. So that was the obvious choice.
It's a face that everyone recognises. It's a truck, it's a monster truck, it's the can-do truck. It will do everything and anything. So this is what we wanted the A-Test platform to start off with.
The A-Test is, it's our halo car. It's something which needs to stand out on its own as people recognise it from far, that it's not just a regular success.
Essentially, you start from a clean piece of paper. You have to redo all the transmission calculations, the torque calculations. You have to estimate new weights for the vehicle. It's really quite in depth. It isn't like hitting a Xerox button and saying scale by 120.
When you've got a clean sheet of paper, it's obviously a very good position to be, but it's also a very difficult position because there's absolutely no direction. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's really quite involved.
We needed it to look like a Kraton to start with, but then it was deciding on the scale, and from the scale then you need to decide how fast do you want it to go, what kind of limit with the battery. So you start off with your limitations and gradually drill down to what you can achieve.
I kind of try and glue everything together and make sure that all the engineers and design ideas all translate into what we're trying to achieve.
A lot of it is form follows function, so we know how much power we've got to transmit, so that then kind of drives your diffs and your drivetrain.
We knew from the very beginning that we are aiming for at least an A-Test system. Based on the power of the system, we can then calculate the strength of the drivetrain that is needed.
You end up with like the centre section of the car starts to become built. We've got like points of like wheelbase and width and length that we try and aim. We've got a box that we're trying to fit into.
Usually we know how we want the car to behave, what roll center, ride height and amount of suspension travel is required. This leads us to the position of suspension pickup points in the chassis.
Then from there this leaves you so much room for suspension arms, and then everything starts to flow outwards. It's got to encompass stuff that's out there already, so motors, batteries, what's available on the market, what can people get their hands on, what can we get our hands on, and the shape of the car then starts to follow pretty quickly afterwards.
It was the main goal during the design of Kraton A-Test to make it as modular as possible and easy to modify, because we knew that our customers are going to modify it. That's why we did everything we could to allow for as many different motors, servos and battery options as possible, to give basically a toolbox for customers to play around and just have fun with it.
Smaller vehicles, we all know the little tiny vehicles, they'll just bounce off everything, and the materials are very much within their limits at those smaller scales. When you start getting larger and larger, then things become much more challenging. You look at suspension geometry to make sure it's going to have handling similar to the smaller vehicles. You've got to have a power to weight ratio that's exciting. So you're sort of gauging that through the project. You're trying to keep a check on that power to weight balance.
And when we're going through the initial design, you have to take a step back and say, is this something that I would want to work on? Is this something I would like to drive? Does it look right? It may be the best solution from an engineering perspective, but if it doesn't look right and doesn't feel right, that's when we have to evaluate other options just to make sure that we come up with the best solutions.
We didn't want to have a vehicle that is big and can only go in a straight line. We wanted something that handles as well as the rest of the ARRMA range.
Once you've got the vehicle, then the reaction of the people that are testing it is key to me. You know, if they're coming back from a test session and they're really pretty excited by what's going on, then that's a good sign. If they come back and go, well, it was a bit sort of lethargic and not sort of got that excitement level that we're known for, then sometimes we have to go back and challenge ourselves to do it a bit better and differently.
At ARRMA, each style of body is almost its own sub-brand, and it's something we try to push forward with every generation, but at the same time keep that heritage, keep it recognizable for what it is. The Kraton, the Typhon, the Infraction, they all have their own independent characters, and that's something which we work tirelessly on. Usually it starts off with me boxing some forms together. With something like the Kraton, it already has its signature, it already has that silhouette. It's an iconic piece. It's something people are familiar with for its slammed cab, its muscular haunches, and that in itself is something which we want to just gradually evolve over time. This has got beastly monster truck tires on it, so it's important that we have clearances for those, and customers, even if they decide to swap those out, that we try to accommodate as much as we can for those sort of changes.
I mean, we've got a great following of ARRMA guys. They're going to go berserk with the car, so we have to design the car to be usable out of the box, but still have room for the customers afterwards to start banging in option parts and optional motors. So we've got to give them room to tune it and personalise the car themselves.
So those are the kind of things, it's making sure you tick the boxes during the design phase, and then also again during the testing and development phase, final development phase. I've said this many times and I'll say it again, it's the engineering details that you have to go back over and over again. If you just push a project through, then it'll probably miss us with one of the criteria, and there ultimately will not be such a good product for the people that buy it.
I remember seeing photos of Wojciech and saw photos of him stood on the car and holding the car, and then suddenly the CAD screen that was this big has suddenly become a car that's huge, because all the cars we design look the same size on the screen. They all fit on a A3 piece of paper, but when you can see in front of the factory, it's like, oh yeah, oh wow, that's big.
Yeah, I mean, you get into the first parts through and you're seeing how large the differential is and how large some of the parts are, which now, because we've been living with that platform for probably 18 months now, the parts seem like normal, but when you first get those large scale parts back, it's like, wow, big.
It's always the case when the first body samples come through, that's when you're really excited, because something you've been working on a computer screen, seeing that in the flesh in person, oh wow, yes, it's finally here. But but then usually it's quickly followed by, okay, right, we've got this now. How can we improve it? How can we take it to that next level? We're not just content with that first sample. We want to make sure it's the best it can be.
The first batch of samples we received were really good, and we were able to build a test car during my first visit to the factory with minimal modifications. We drove the car and it didn't break. We had no issues with it, so that was a good sign that we have a solid design, which just needs a little bit of polishing work before release. Straight off, the first prototype ever built, and you could just go outside and bash it. So that was a good sign for the future.
First time we got it back here in its built form, that was exciting.
When you see the entire car all together, wow, that's huge. And it looked big, it looked like a Kraton. It looked like it was something that we'd done, that no one else had done. It looked great straight. From the first time you saw it, you knew it was going to be a winner. So this is the 4S, this is the 8S. And then seeing the 6S, suddenly the 6S looks like a 4S. Like, oh, this is a big car. And we had all three lined up. We had the 4S, the 6S and the 8S. You just see the generation of each car, and the family resemblance is key. It had to look like a Kraton, it did. Now, they're the great moments when you see the car for the first time. We use the same testing that we go through with our other cars. We set ourselves goals of what do we think is acceptable when you go testing. So you don't want it to like land off a jump and fall apart. It's got to bounce and it's got to be bashable.
One of the key things is the transmission. We do a lot of transmission testing to make sure that's absolutely bulletproof. We do handling testing, jumping testing. We do strength testing of plastics. There's a lot of testing that goes into the core product, which kind of leads us on to the customer's expectations, because we pride ourselves with making sure that our products are strong, fast, reliable and great fun.
For us, it's really important that we go out and try and run the car like the customer's going to run it. We see people taking cars to skate parks, BMX tracks. If it's not fun for us to drive as people who have been in the business for quite a while, then it might not be great for a customer to come into. It's got to excite us, and sometimes that's the best test. Does it excite us as employees of ARRMA? And around the office it certainly did.
And then when you see the product in the box that's shipped from the factory, it's such a cool feeling to know that that's what you've put your blood, sweat and tears over the last few years into is going to be enjoyed by the customers.
I ain't tryna bring you down, but for real, you might as well give up now. Think you got a chance, but I don't see how. Got a real tight grip when I hold that crown. My life been good and bad and all around. The more things I lost, the more I found. One thing I taught myself to do, no matter the problem, refuse to lose. So, came here ready to fight on this night. You better just run for your life. Heavy metal. I don't make a sound when I strike. You better just run for your life.
Designed fast, designed tough.